All right. The gang's all together talking U.S. Open golf. How's it going, Jan? Nice to have you back again.
I know, it's great to be back.
Jared, what's going
Excited,
on?
excited for this one. Course looks awesome. I love West Coast golf because it's on till I saw the TV coverage on Sunday goes to like 10 p.m. So I don't know if it's going to end that late or if that's like post game coverage or what. But I mean, I like having the prime time golf.
It probably will go to 10 p.m. with the Western time, especially with the Open, because there's so many players that they can't have them tee off extra early. There won't be enough light.
By the way, as you can see, we have a new layout. We're testing some new formats. So we'll come up with the right one in the next few days, the next few weeks. Making a lot of changes here on the channel. So bear with us. But you can see everyone. You can hear everyone. That's the main deal. So we have a lot to cover. But look, let's start off. We have to. I didn't think we were going to, but we have to start off with the dramatic win for Canada. Kind of felt that way. We talked about it, Jared, on last week's show, that if Canada was ever going to win again, that this was the perfect year to do it. And Nick Taylor went crazy for the last 3 rounds, and it was exciting golf. It was a nice golf course, too. I can't imagine they won't come back there every year.
Yeah, it played tougher than I thought it was gonna. And yeah, Nick Taylor, I think he was in like 120th after round 1. Right, mm-hmm. He was like 3 over after round 1, then rattled off 3 awesome rounds in a row. That was, I mean, to me, the other story too is Tommy Fleetwood, who, man, is the guy ever going to win on the PGA Tour? Because that was an excellent chance for him to get his first win.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it is, but it's one of those things where that's just going to put Tommy that much closer to finishing the deal. And maybe he'll finish it in a much bigger event because the Canadian Open is not a big event. So I think he's got a chance even this week and definitely at the Open Championship. So, I mean, his putting was amazing. Just not good enough.
It was.
What did you think about the way he handled 18 in the final round, Jan? Did he get too kind of weak? Did he kind of play to not lose there?
No, I mean, it's very nerve-wracking. There's no question. I mean, when you're leading and you've got the pressure of breaking through and winning, it's a big deal. I mean, all the English guys were there as well. I thought that if anything, he'd have a chance there because the Commonwealth, I won in Canada. I always had a great event there because they really get behind the Commonwealth, which obviously is Britain and Australia. And so I thought he had a good shot because he had so much support. Unfortunately, he had to go up against the Canadians. So then, that kind of ruined that. But, he's putting so well. But, you know what I've said about his golf swing. He goes from open to close so much, and he's just started working with Butch. He's going to work it left to right now. So you could see him doing it a little bit. But when the pressure gets on, he's going to still hit a hook. So he's going to be great because his short game is so good. Coming up, like you said about the Open, Jared, I mean, it's that golf course is the rough is so long that you're going to have to, number one, be really patient, and number two, be a good putter. So he's got a shot for the Open.
Yeah, let's talk about, because I wanted to spend at least a few minutes on the major news from last week. We'll get your more detailed analysis and feelings about this, Jan. I know Len Hochberg, who works with RotoWire and does a really good job there, is really big into the whole PGA Tour live relationship. So I'd like to get you and Len on together maybe next week, and we can do a whole conversation on it. But your initial take, Jan?
Well, I mean, I can't believe that Jay, I mean, you know how he was at the whole time. This is never going to happen. I'm going to punish the players. You know how I told you last time I thought he was a big bully and that he needed to just calm down and see what would happen. And then for him to turn around, I mean, obviously money talks. I heard the Justice Department is looking into it and may not let it happen, but I don't think that'll happen either. But I think Jay shot himself in the foot. By being that way, he got a lot of players upset. And if anything, they should be putting him on a pedestal and thanking him every single day. Because if it wasn't for Greg Norman, as much as they've been criticizing him and as little as Greg likes me, he's the reason that they're playing for this much money and they have the special events and everyone is making money. So if you're a good golfer right now, you can make a lot of money on the tour.
From what you understand, do you think it's going to end up like in a year or a few months or however long it's going to take? Do you think it's going to end up in a good situation for the fans?
Absolutely. I think there's going to still be two kind of different tournaments. I think that they're going to have kind of the live events and definitely team events. I liked Max Homer's comment. I hope we get to have a say in the team names because they suck. And I thought that was pretty funny. But that's typical Max Homer. But I think it's going to have, I like the team feel because everybody loves to play team events. And in golf, look how popular Ryder Cup and President's Cup and Solheim. So the fact that you're playing for a team, I mean, Greg's idea was to have where you could sell the franchise like it would be a baseball or a football team. And I think that will probably happen. But now that it's for profit and not a non-profit organization, I think they're going to pay the players if they play, certain events. So I think that'll kind of even it out. But there's a lot of money to be played for. $2 billion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So they're talking about having teams now on the PGA Tour.
Well, I think that'll stay as the live part of it. And, I mean, it's nobody knows. This was Jay playing with the guys from Saudi every single day in England. That's all I had heard. And I thought, well, at least they're kind of making it up. I had no clue this would happen that way. I just thought they were trying to, I know that they didn't want to go through lawsuits as it was going to cost years and lots of money.
Yeah, it made no
hundreds
sense.
of millions.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready for discovery, and I don't think anyone wanted to go look at the books on either side. So I think that part was when they said they obviously played a lot of golf. They played every single day in London and got something accomplished. We won't know the details. I've been trying to find out from some of the players, but he didn't even tell them at the meeting in Canada. I mean, he did tell them that, things will be different and there'll be a lot of money for everybody to be made. So don't be bitter. That's about all he really said.
All right.
I'm not even sure they know the details yet. All right. I think they're still trying to work that out. I think it's just like a skeleton agreement they have in place right now.
Yeah. And especially now that the Justice Department has said they need to check into it because they don't want, the private fund owning the PGA Tour. But I think it's too late for that. $2 billion. I think they bought it for $2 billion.
Yeah. Well, with all this additional money, maybe, and ability on the live side, if they really want to have more exposure, they really have to do a better job of how they set up their telecast. And I mean, their leaderboard is just abysmal.
It's so hard it's really hard to keep an eye on what's going on. And I really don't like at least on the last day, the shotgun field, because they've been lucky that the leaders have been in the last couple of groups. So they've teed off on one. But what happens if the leader shoots like yesterday and someone shoots 64 and they finish on the fifth hole?
Yeah.
It messes everything up. So I think they're going to have to change that. I don't like that at all. And it is, but the television, the PGA blocked them from the big networks. So now that'll open up.
Yep.
And that's going to make a big difference. I'm hoping that the LPGA, they'll buy the LPGA because now the men are going to be playing for a ridiculous amount of money and the poor LPGA are playing for the whole tournament is less than what they're getting for first prize.
All right. So a lot to find out. I just hope it happens as soon as possible as fans. That's all. And we can have a little bit more normalcy again at the sport. And that's something that'd be nice. Before we preview this week's big U.S. Open, Jan, you actually, last week you told me that you had an offer to Jared on your fantasy team. I gave Jared the offer on the show last week. And Jared, what did you think? I know Jared was definitely up for the moving Shane Lowry. I don't know what he thought about Cam Smith, but hey, you know what? If it's a package deal, then Jared has to offer you something to make it worthwhile or in return. So Jared, what did you think about the offer of Shane Lowry and Cam Smith for
Well, they're the two I want.
Yeah, Jared.
Oh, right. Yeah. I haven't put together a package yet. I'm still working on it. These are complicated deals, Greg. Takes
All
time.
right.
Okay.
Chicken out, right? So it won't be happening this week.
Well, I thought Shane was going to win last week, so I now I'm not as nervous.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have to worry this week. I doubt it. But Cam Smith, you never know.
I think I tell you why I like Cam Smith for this week. It's, I mean, LA Country Club. I mean, it's been a while since I played it, and I have not played it since they renovated it. But it reminds me so much of Australia. They've got the big gum trees. They got the sun at the same feel. It's going to make him feel like he's home. And if they get the fairways running, you don't know if, with the USG, you never know how they're going to set the course up. I know that rough is long around the greens, and Cam Smith is a brilliant chipper and a really good wedge player. So if you get in trouble there, you're going to have to chip out. I think Gil Hans has renovated it. I don't care for his renovation, but the golf course is a really, really tough golf course.
So the winning score will be?
Well, the USGA always aims to have the winning score even par. That's their goal. They want to have even par win. It'll be under, but it won't be a lot under.
Okay. And the setup, as far as favoring certain players or not, do you think that's going to be something that we should take into account?
Definitely. The golf course, I've heard from a couple of the players that went and played it, previously, and they said the golf course is ridiculously long. Whether they play it that long is a different factor, depending on the weather, of course. But there's a 300-yard par three. So much for drivable par fours. If this is a par three that a lot of players can't reach. So it's obviously a long hitters golf course. So that takes about 20% of the field away. But also because the rough is so long around the greens, it's someone that has a brilliant short game. So when you come to that, Cam Smith's not a long hitter, but he's got a great short game. Brooks, again, it's great for Brooks. But the only thing wrong with Brooks, it's the same thing that happened at the Masters. He doesn't have the patience. Remember how impatient he got on Sunday? Well, USGA, everybody knows that it is an endurance test at the US Open because they put too many people on the field. They had 10,000 people try to qualify. So when they do qualify, there's too many people because they've got too many amateurs and too many guys that don't even play on the tour. So it gets so slow. So then you've got to be patient. That's why I thought I'd never win one because it takes 7 hours to play. So
7 hours.
The first 2 days takes between 6 and 7 hours. So you've got to have a lot of patience.
7 hours.
But so you have to have it all. I mean, someone like a Scotty Scheffler who's patient. Maybe John Rahm isn't, but he was at the Masters. Cantlay is perfect for Cantlay because he's kind of, he doesn't get flustered and he's a very slow player anyway. So
that'd be great.
You got to look at him. Max Homa he's home with all of his hometown friends and family, so he probably can handle it. So you got to look at people that have got the patience and great short games. I don't know, Matsuyama's very patient too. Because he's always just calm. I think it's going to be someone that's pretty calm.
Okay, well, let's take a look at your stats, Jared. We have him here on the board. Total strokes gained at the U.S. Open over the last 5 years. So we've got that on the ticker. We've got top 10 in you have a model for the U.S. Open, and you've got the top 10 for the model, and then you show everybody what makes up your model. So talk about that.
Yeah, we can start with the top 10 and strokes gained at the U.S. Open over the last 5 years. I mean, so I'd be interested to get Jan's take on this because I do feel like this course is going to play different than the general U.S. Open course. I feel like U.S. Open courses they're always long, which this is, but I feel like they're usually tighter. I think a key difference at this course is the fairways look wider to me than we get at most U.S. Open courses, which I think favor someone like Cam Smith, right, who can get a little wonky up the tee at times. Someone like Jordan Spieth, I think, is someone I looked at this week because I think he can get a little crooked off the tee, but I think that's not going to hurt as much here. Now that said, the U.S. Opens are generally set up similar from year to year, right? So I do think even though this is always played at different courses, I think looking at who has done well in recent U.S. Opens is definitely a good pointer for when you're looking to make your bets for this year.
Yeah, and plus the last few years, they, like to your point, they have made the courses wider with the Open. In the old days, it was really narrow and tight and long, and now that was more the PGA this year, and with LA Country Club, and with Gil, he tends to have he's kind of like Jack Nicklaus. They do a wider landing area and then make it tough to the for your second shot. So that. And it's gonna be long. And maybe if you say that, then a Dustin Johnson who hits it long and crooked sometimes too might be a good one.
All right. So let's start off first of all, because we're all in one and done. And this is, as we've talked about before, this is not the highest point total for the year. Matter of fact, you had more points allotted to the winner of the Memorial, and actually the Travelers coming up next week as well, right, Jared?
Yeah, that's right. That's $20 million. This is 15. So
yeah, so keep that in mind. Just because it's a major, it doesn't mean that you have to put your best player there. You might as well save your best player for a non-major if it works out that way. So you're not forced into using your best player for the major. Talk about any particular. Do you have a top 3 or 5 that you've already put together, Jared, for one and done?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're at the point of the season where I think if you've been doing this right, like you don't have a ton of elite players left, right? There's like 5 or 6 more big money tournaments left, so you really should only have a handful of these elite guys left. So that does kind of narrow down the pool of players you can pick from. And we'll get into these guys when we get into our bets. I like Victor Hovland a lot this week, so if you have him still available, I would look that way. I think Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, I think those types. Again, I hesitate to use a Scheffler or a Rahm here because the prize pool isn't as big as it is at these elevated events. Now, if you have one of them left, it's fine to use them, I think. But I've used those guys at some of these events with a bigger prize pool. So I'm more looking at that like second and third tier of player.
That's the trouble. I think you've used most of our big ones. Just hope you've used them in the right time. I'm going to use a LIV player only because I can. There in the Open Championship, just because I want to keep a couple of the good ones I have left for the big ones.
Is that Cam Smith?
I'm going to probably take Cam, yeah.
Have you used Koepka yet?
I used him at the PGA, so I used him well.
So you got that win, just like Jared did. And who do you have left? Do you have everyone else left except Koepka on LIV?
No. Oh, on LIV, I've got everybody else left.
Okay.
So I'll probably I may take Dustin Johnson for the Open.
For the Open Championship.
Yeah, because is it at Liverpool this year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be wide open.
It's right. It is wide open.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about parlays and things of that nature, and if you're into that with the majors, just keep in mind some notes for the Open Championship, and you've already given your DJ pick potentially in the Open. But again, McIlroy won at Liverpool in 2014. Rose had a top 25 at Liverpool in 2014. Garcia and Fowler were runner-up at Liverpool in 2014. Wow. They're going to be long shots, of course. Adam Scott was 5th at Liverpool in 2014. Tyrrell Hatton, who's playing fantastic golf.
Oh, my God. What a great golf swing.
Has had 3 good results at the Open Championship in his career. Fleetwood was runner-up in 2019 and 4th last year. Rose, not particularly good at the Open Championship overall, but he's been playing better there, runner-up in 2018. And Victor Hovland, and I've been saving Hovland for the Open Championship all year. He was 4th and 12th there. But Jared, are you thinking of you haven't used Hovland yet in your one and done, have you?
I was just looking through. I've used him in one of mine, but not the other. So I probably will use Hovland in the other one. Max Homa's another guy who I think makes a lot of sense, right? California guy, has the course record here, 61 here. So I think he's someone, if you haven't used him yet, he makes sense.
I really like Homa for here. Yeah, I mean, every tournament he's won in California.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's definitely, and again, even guys like Jan said, Cantlay, if you haven't used him, Schauffele, who has an incredible U.S. Open record, except winning, but the record is fantastic.
And
So-
he's patient too. You got to have someone that's patient.
Yep, there you go. It's interesting that the couple of guys you pointed out who are patient, Cantlay and Schauffele, also have something that I would call nerve issues when it comes to majors. So that's interesting, you know. And maybe it's because you think that actually works against them because they're too patient. Maybe there's too much thinking going on.
There might be a lot of thinking. I don't know. I mean, I just think that I'm surprised Cantlay hasn't done better.
Yeah.
With his golf game, you know, because he is pretty steady. But you're right, under pressure, he's actually lost quite a few, not just major events, but PGA events. When you thought all he had to do was, you know, make a putt and he missed, or you know, missed an easy chip shot. So there's something in it. You know, and how they talk all the time. Once you break through and win one major, then it seems like, you know, you can get on a roll. Because the two things that we always talk about winning a major, when you as a player, is the number one thing is trending. It is still a lot depends on how you're playing at the time. You know, you can be playing. Look at Rory for the first 4 months he's still not really hitting it that great. But you know, I mean, if you're playing well, you tend to kind of ride that wave for a while. So whether it's a major or not, if you're playing well, you have an advantage.
Yeah.
The thing with Cantlay too, just looking at the numbers, is he just isn't very good on difficult golf courses. I'm looking at my numbers right now. He's 44th in this field on difficult golf courses.
Wow.
So I just think he's just better at, you know, easier courses where, you know, 15 under, 20 under wins. I think obviously most of these majors are played at tougher tracks. I think that's his biggest problem at majors. It's not the case for Xander. Xander's fourth best in this field on tough courses. So
that's an interesting stat that I didn't realize, because I always feel like Cantlay's a good driver of the ball too. Because usually, typically, you know, the harder the golf course, the harder it is to drive it. You would think that, but if he does better on the bigger ones, then it means he can kind of swing away and not worry about, you know, what his lie's going to be like. That's an interesting stat.
All right, I'm going to throw the picks ticker. There's Jared's 4 picks. By the way, one of Jared's picks, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because I think it's kind of funny that Jan has that fantasy. Jan decided, it's very interesting, Jan, that you decided, and I just want to double check you want to do this, and I want to know your rationale, because this is interesting, that you have Justin Suh and Brandon Wu now in the U.S. Open, and you'd rather have them than Gary Woodland. So why is that?
Well, and you know, and Gary won at Pebble when they opened when I was there, but and Gary's got a great golf game, but Justin Suh, I've been watching him play. He's such a good putter. I'm just so impressed with how he putts, and Brandon. I mean, they're both. You know, I said at the beginning of when we started this, the beginning of the year, these rookies coming out this year are unbelievable. And there are. Look at Harry Hall. Look at, you know, Sam Steve. There's so many that are great. Austin Eckroat. And I just think that even though Justin technically is a rookie and he's played quite a bit on the PGA Tour when he played, but I actually think he's had enough PGA experience now to break through. And I think Gary's struggling. I mean, I feel sorry for him, and he's had a couple of events recently where he's played well, but I'm going with rookies.
All right, I like the guts on that.
I like Suh a lot this week. I mean, I wouldn't bet him to win. I don't think he's ready for that. But like, if you're making a top 20 bet, maybe, I think, you know, Suh is probably someone I would like for that.
I agree. I don't think he's ready to win, but when Greg was telling me about the 100 to ones, I'd put money on him at $1 or something. Him and Brandon, because they both got great short games.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that like in the game that we have, the fantasy game, that you just don't get all these additional points for winning. You get additional points for everything. So if you finish top 5, top 10, that's a good week. And so if you don't like Gary Woodland, think he's going to miss the cut entirely, and you think Suh and Wu will make the cut, then you have a chance of making a lot better money than you would normally by making the cut.
And when you at the Open too, because he is a past Open champion, you have to go to all these dinners as a past champion.
Sure.
And a lot of the players don't like to do that, but I think they're doing it. Well, they're doing it for the women's, as I'm going out to Pebble for the women's. They're doing it earlier in the week this time, but they were doing it on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night when you want to be out practicing, and they'll start at 6 o'clock at night, and you might want to play 9 holes or hit some balls, and now you got to go to a past champions dinner. And it really, you don't want to worry about that when you're trying to play another Open.
All right, let's run through our picks. So, well, first of all, as we do that, I'm going to go through the groupings, and you guys give me your take on which way you would go. Scheffler, Rahm, or Koepka. So
that is a tough one right there. You're going to feel those one of those people are going to be the one that wins, right?
Probably.
I hope not, financially speaking. But who would you take, Jan?
I'm going to go with Jon Rahm.
Okay, Jon Rahm. Interesting. Jared?
I'm going to go Scotty Scheffler and hope he can just have like an average week putting, because if he does that, he's going to win by like 5 strokes. Because I mean, Rahm's ball striking's been great lately, but Scheffler's is just at a whole nother level.
He is hitting it he's swinging so well, and he's hitting it so unbelievable. I mean, that one round when was it, in Texas, where it rained and he got unlucky because it poured and he kept slipping without having spikes on, because he has that funny move to stay shut off a little bit on his hips. I can see what he's doing wrong with his putting too. I can't believe no one can see it. I mean, you tend to have your putting stroke very similar to your golf swing. And so his is, the way he swings, he kind of takes it a little bit inside and raises it up, and then he kind of comes over with a really, really square, a little bit open club face, so it causes a fade. And then he can hold off his hips. But if he slips and his hips turn too quickly, then he hits it left. That's why he slipped when it was raining. So when he's putting stroke, when the 4 and 5 footers, especially left to righters, he starts on left where he's aimed, because he kind of does that. He kind of goes a little inside and a little bit over the top. And then he cuts across it and doesn't go through his line. And he pulls him a little bit left of where he's aimed every time. And it's like, you can see it on the television. I want to yell and say, fix it.
All right. Next group. And I'm going to go with Scheffler too, by the way. Next group, Rory, Cantlay, and Homa. Jared?
I got to go Rory there. To me, Homa's still a tier below those two, and then Cantlay's major record, still kind of underwhelming. Rory's U.S. Open record, awesome. So I think Rory's close. I do. I mean, he's been there on Sunday these past couple tournaments. Just having disappointing Sundays. The wedges have been disappointing, but I do think he's close. And like I said, his U.S. Open courses tend to suit him well.
Yeah, especially the surface. Very, very strong on the bent grass greens. And he's trending. He's got 4 straight top 10s in the U.S. Opens. The problem I'm having with Rory, though, is I don't know, Jan, because I don't look at it anymore as a swing thing. Because the last few events, he's playing a round or two better. But why does it seem like the final round, that's the round where all of a sudden he's not on his game? That, to me, that's not a coincidence. I think there's a little bit of something going on there that he's not comfortable for whatever the reason is on a Sunday.
Well, they used to say what a great driver of the ball is, but this year, I don't know what his stats say, but every time I've been watching, I've thought that he's under pressure. He drove it very poorly, coming down the stretch every time, when that used to be his strength. So I know he's changed drivers. I know he's shortened it to keep it more in play because he has no trouble with distance. And I mean, at Memorial, he hung in there because he really, really wanted to, same as the PGA. I mean, he worked hard at the PGA. When he hit the ball really quite poor for him in a major to have that great a score. So he's really, really being a lot more patient than he ever had, where he would usually just kind of, oh, well, I'm just going to miss a cut, or I don't care. He's really working hard. And his short game is good. I don't think it's his short game like Scotty's. I mean, if Scotty could make a 4-foot putt, he would have already won 3 more tournaments in the last 5 weeks. So I don't know. I'm kind of like you. He's not happy with his game. He said it's getting closer, but I don't understand why you can't find it. That's all you do all day long is work out and practice, and you can't find it.
Well, that's why I think he can't. I think he's having a problem finding it on Sundays.
I got to go with Homer. I mean, Homer
I would
had 2
too.
weeks off. He, I mean, his baby's a little bit older now because he said he felt like a pack rat because he's having to haul so much stuff when they travel. So he took 2 weeks off. He knows the course. I just hope it's not too much pressure because it's hometown. But I think he's got the game to break through and get to that next tier.
Okay, Morikawa.
I just wish with home. I wish we were on POA greens. That's where he dominates, and these aren't POA.
Which is amazing because POA they're bumpy and you have to be firm with them. Whereas with bent greens, you've got to be more tentative. So, and that might actually help Scheffler because he's a little bit tentative sometimes.
All right, now the next group actually ended up being 3 of my picks: Morikawa, Spieth, and Hatton. So if you guys had to pick one of those 3, Jared, who would you go with?
Yeah, they're all close to me. I'm going to go Hatton, who I just think is playing the best among those 3. 3rd, 12th, 15th, 5th, and 3rd in his last 5 tournaments now. Doesn't really have the U.S. Open tracker. Yeah, he does have a 6th place finish. But other than that, he's been pretty disappointing. But he's just, he's really. If I just look at who's been the best players over the last 3 months in terms of strokes gained total, Hatton is 6th best over the last 3 months. So he's just playing awesome right now.
Well, of all 3 of those players, Hatton's my favorite. I love his golf swing. His golf swing is fantastic. My major concern is that he has very little patience.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually funny to watch. I love watching him because you never know what he's going to do, and he just gets so upset. But clearly, he's playing the best of all those 3, and what a great golf swing. I mean, he's driving it so well. I mean, he really was impressive driving it the last few weeks when it was tight. Who was the other one? Morikawa and who else?
Spieth.
Oh, and Spieth. I mean, again, Spieth let his wrist. He's got such a good short game. But again, I don't know that he's patient enough.
Yes.
I've still got to go with Hatton.
Yes, Spieth. Now his win at the U.S. Open back in 2015 was also on the West Coast. It was in Washington. He's coming up a 5th at Memorial, so the wrist should be fine now. Keep in mind, remember, Hatton had that awful round 1 at the PGA, just completely put him out of the running, and then had a great 3 rounds. If he would have had a good day to open things up, he would have been there in contention, and maybe that'll help him out this week. And Morikawa also won in California, winning the 2020 PGA Championship. I know he hasn't played great, but Morikawa has proven before that he doesn't have to be in rhythm to win a major. And I don't know, we all liked him in the beginning of the year, so I don't want to give up on him right now. I kind of think that maybe he might be. And also what I really like is the fact that we're getting Morikawa at 35-1.
Yeah. And my only thing with Morikawa is the back issue. I don't know where that's at. Having to withdraw on Sunday at the Memorial.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just know that his putting is suspect. For an Open, you got to be able to make those. You got to make a lot of 6-foot downhill 6-footers. It seems. I don't know that his putting's good enough.
Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick, and Cam Smith. So you have the defending champ, Cam Smith. Kind of know where you're going there, Jan. Mm-hmm. And Tommy Fleetwood, coming off that impressive runner-up on Sunday, is really quietly putting together a pretty good season. Again, he was runner-up in the 2018 U.S. Open. And his odds actually dropped from 60 to 40-1 after this past week. Jared?
I'd go Cam Smith there. Fitzpatrick's actually had a pretty disappointing season outside of the win at the Heritage. He's had a lot of miscuts this season. The numbers have kind of been all over the place. Fleetwood to me is kind of like a tier below these 2 guys. But Cam Smith for me, we talked about him before, but it's funny. I do kind of think Augusta is an interesting comp course for LA. I don't know, Jan, if you have any thoughts on that, but they're both bent grass greens. I think the other thing with LA is there's a lot of elevation changes and a lot of uneven lies, which is kind of a big part of Augusta. So Cam Smith's obviously had plenty of success there. So I think that's another reason to like him this week.
It looks like Australia too. When you're playing it, you can. Those trees are the same. Those big gum trees, we have those everywhere.
Before we move on, we're getting past these odds here. Victor Hovland at 18-1 and Xander Schauffele at 18-1. These are Jared's top picks. So I think now we all believe Hovland is ready to win. I still believe he's better suited for the Open Championship, but who's to say he can't win the U.S. Open? He has 2 top 15s and 4 trips. And Schauffele has just been amazing, as we mentioned. He has, 6 top 15s and 6 U.S. Opens with 5 top 10s and 3 top 5s. It's just an amazing U.S. Open resume. He's a no-brainer to put something on this week, and maybe both players are. So what about these two guys, Jan? What do you think about those 2 picks for Jared?
Well, yeah, I think Schauffele and Hovland are both really good. I mean, obviously Schauffele, up until recently, I would have said Hovland doesn't have the short game. He's been working really hard on his bunker play. I'm trying to think of the bunkers at LA Country Club. I didn't really get in any, so I don't remember. But I'm still a little suspect of the short game with Hovland. He's still not the greatest chipper compared to Schauffele. So, but then you say that, and yet Hovland is trending and you're playing better. So that breaks that rule, because I always believe if you're playing well, you're a favorite anyway. So that's it. I wouldn't want to go up one against the other, but they are both good picks because Schauffele's got a great short game.
Jared, what was the defining factor in taking these 2 guys this week?
Yeah, I mean, just being the U.S. Open, this is kind of how I wanted my card to look with, just 2 or 3 high-end guys, because I do think one of the top, 15, maybe even one of the top 10 players in the world is going to win this. I'd be surprised if it's a long shot. Hovland, to me, behind Scheffler and Rahm, is probably playing the best golf in the world in the last, month or 2. He had the close call to Pete. He's had a couple close calls at majors now, so I like that he's kind of gotten the taste for being in it on a Sunday, and I just think he's ready to win. I think U.S. Open courses should suit his game well. He's an excellent driver. He's obviously excellent with the approach play, and the short game has been the question, but man, I think it's massively improved even over the last couple of months now. So I think it's good enough for him to win a major at this point.
Yeah, speaking about the best players, that's pretty much been the case. If you take a look at it, the last 13 U.S. Open champs all ranked in the top 40 at the start of the event, and only 5 of the last 31 ranked outside the top 40. You have 26 of the last 27 first-time winners made at least 3 appearances before winning. So, experience and being at the top of the game, very important. And a couple other ones that are really interesting, or at least one of these. The last 7 first-time winners had no worse than an 11th result in the 2 prior majors that year. So again, that's the last 7, meaning that you should have some sort of major momentum coming into the U.S. Open as well. And those are the best players.
That makes sense because, the U.S. Open, there is so much media focus. I mean, you get attention you can't. If you're leading the U.S. Open, it takes over an hour in the press room, and so you get the nerves get incredible. I mean, leading a major and what it does for your career is so much pressure that I can see why someone not in the top 40. I mean, they got it even last week. You look at last week. You had that Yuan leading and all these guys that have missed 5 cuts in a row and then they lead. They can't even, they weren't even in the top 10 when they finished. It's 10 times worse in a major when you've got that much attention, your television around the world, you've got the media centers are packed. Everyone wants interviews. I mean, it takes hours to do it all every day. And especially if you're a defending champion or in contention. I mean, you've just got to have your mate that a lot of their agents won't let them do a lot. They'll agree to one interview on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and that's it. One press conference. But it's a lot of pressure, and it's scary for a lot of tour players, no matter where you've been. That's why picking a top 100 to win it, that's someone in the 100, they have no shot.
Yeah. How about these three? Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, and Bryson DeChambeau. And I'm just amazed, and I'm willing to just throw even a buck if I have to, but I can't. I'm amazed that Justin Thomas is 50-1. I know he's not.
The books are begging you to bet Justin Thomas, which usually means you should not bet him.
But still, that's
I know,
amazing odds.
It's tempting for sure.
But which of those three, Jared?
I'd go with Dustin Johnson. Again, he was second on that list of best players in the U.S. Open over the last 5 years, and I think he showed a little something at the PGA. Right, he faded over the weekend, but he was right there. So it's tough with the live guys just to know where their games are at. But last time we saw Dustin at a major, I think he played pretty well. And again, I think these U.S. Open courses suit his game.
I like Dustin. I mean, I think I always like to pick the live guys on our one and done, but because you don't get them all the time. And again, he's kind of he doesn't get rattled as much, especially not with slow play. So I think that's good. Justin Thomas is disappointing. He hits the ball a long way. He's had a little bit of a neck issue because of his golf swing. Obviously, he goes at it pretty hard and he dips his head. But moving into that new house, he should be ready to go by now.
Well, he hopes that's his excuse. Day, Rose, and Matsuyama. And Rose is one of my picks this week. And I've been talking about him all year as a potential major champ after his win at Pebble. And I just maybe this week is the week because he's really playing as good as we've seen him play in a few years. And Matsuyama is also a sneaky good pick this week. But Rose has played a lot better than Matsuyama has recently. So what do you think? Jared, who would you go with there?
I'd go with Hideki there. We talked about sixth best U.S. Open player over the last 5 years. He's actually seventh best in this field on tough, long courses in general. This is just the kind of spot where he plays well. And he's it's been a strange year for him. I feel like he's still having the neck issues. But when he's been healthy, he's definitely put some good stuff out there. So I do think Hideki's someone I looked at betting him. He was 40-1 last I checked, which I think is a pretty good number.
Yeah, 40-1, just like Rose.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a good bet. That's a good bet because Matsuyama reminded me of Hovland. His short game was always a little bit iffy, but he's really improved it. And he's so steady. He's so patient. He can handle the things of a U.S. Open and, waiting for a ruling and taking too long or syringing the greens. So I actually think I like Hideki for this one too.
By the way, the one edge Rose has over Matsuyama, and that's the greens. Rose is very good on the bent grass. Matsuyama is not good.
Oh, that's a good point because if Matsuyama is used to obviously the Bermudas in Florida, the Tiff Eagle they have, and then of course in Japan they're so grainy. And they're never fast. There's no such thing as a fast green in Japan. So that's something he's had to work on. But he's done at the Masters. They're fast, so he knows how to adjust. And he's probably had 2 weeks. He's probably been there a week.
Okay, let's go over some of the long shots now. So Jared, you went with the Gala at 80-1, Woodland at 110-1, and I went with McCarthy at 110-1. Talk about those three long shots, Jan.
Well, I don't know that Danny's long enough for that golf course. It was amazing to see how great he did at Memorial. But I just think it needs to be a long hitter for the Open. So I don't know that he hits it far enough. I think it's going to have to be someone that can bomb it. Gary Woodland, I don't know. We talked about that. I really like him as a person. And he has the game, but whether it's there or not, you just never know with Gary. Who was the other one?
Thigala.
Thigala.
Oh, I like Sahith. I think he's, again, from California. He's used to bent greens. He's played the golf course. I don't know that his first tournament could be a major, though.
Yeah, but yeah, because matter of fact, that's a trend that you don't want to go down the road with because only 5 players have won the U.S. Open in their first. Actually, that's a different trend in their first attempt. Francis Ouimet did that. He was the last to do it, by the way. So if you've never played in the U.S. Open, you have to go back to 1913 for a first-time winner. But yeah, to not win, you have to go back to 2019. Lucas Glover, the last player to win the U.S. Open, and making that their maiden PGA Tour victory. So it's been done.
Of course. That was the reason he won. That was because of the weather. He got lucky on the tee times.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Jared, you picked the Gala?
Yeah, I mean, super volatile player, right? I mean, you look at his results, and there's a lot of bad ones, but he's done well in these, big boy events. 9th at the Masters, he was 14th at Bay Hill, 6th at the Genesis, 4th at the Farmers. Those are all just this year. And then if you look at the numbers over the past 2 years now, he's 12th best in this field on difficult and long golf courses. So I just like that. I think he has the upside where if he has it this week, he could find himself in the mix on Sunday.
All right.
I think he's going to break through this year, though.
I think so too. Probably not here at a major, but I do still like his chances to win this year.
And another notable player under 100 to 1, I just wanted to mention that I'm going to put some money down this week. And I like the fact that you said this is an Australian-style golf course, and that's Adam Scott. Scott's got 3 top 10s in his last 4, including 1 top 5. So he's playing the best golf he's played all year. I would have liked to have seen him win the way Rose did. I feel a little bit better if he had, but Adam Scott, I think he's going to be in contention either at the U.S. Open or the Open Championship, Jan.
Well, I think the Open Championship, I like his odds there because he used to live in London, and he's very comfortable with playing golf over there. He understands when the conditions get tough, how to run it, and not have it always in the air, which is what Americans all tend to do. So you have to be able to adjust that part of the game. But again, like you're saying, is that in Australia, we have a lot of that as well. So my only concern, and Adam is actually a better putter when the greens are fast. He's really not a good putter when the greens are slower. So that helps him. I think that's why he won the Masters, because Augusta, they were fast that year, really fast that year. And he tends to be too tentative with his short putts. So on a golf course in the U.S. Open, that actually is a good thing, because if you ram it, which is what worries me about Brooks Koepka when he hits those 4-footers and hits him at the back of the hole so hard. If you miss, it could, and you have a downhiller, it could go 12 feet by. So I think this is a one time, as poor as his short putting is, and he's actually a great lag putter. He actually has, I think that's a really good bet.
By the way, Adams got 6 top 15s in his last 9 U.S. Opens with 3 top 10s and 1 top 5. Before we wrap up with the long shots that probably have no chance, Jared, do you have any other Adam Scott type players that were under 100 to 1 that we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, I definitely looked at Scott. His putter has been red hot. He's gained over 5 strokes putting in 3 of his last 4 events now. And the ball striking you can usually count on with Adam Scott. I'm trying to think if there are any others in that range I considered. Oh, Patrick Reed's someone I like a little bit. Just again for his major performance in general. Was decent at the PGA. Made the cut at the Masters, U.S. Open, 14th last year. He has a 7th place finish, a couple other top 10. So just Reed, another guy that I like when we get on these tougher golf courses.
Well, the good thing about Patrick is that he can win. He's not one of those ones that can't break through like a Cantley or something. And if he gets there, he'll win.
Yeah, it's sort of like Homa. If he's there in contention and he's in the top 5 or he's got the lead over the weekend, he's going to be very tough to beat.
Yeah, so. And plus he can put the numbers together. Look when he won at San Diego. I mean, he made some clutch putts coming down the stretch.
All right. So, and again, this could be fantasy. You got to throw, or you're forced to play some of these long shots, and you want them in the top 10 or the top 20. So, give us a few of them, Jan. Give us a few 100 to 1 or larger long shots that you think could make a name for themselves and have a good week.
Well, besides Justin Saw, I'll actually, this is probably a sentimental bet, but Eric Cole. Eric has an amazing short game. her mother I played against, in the 70s and 80s, was a very good golfer. She never won an LPGA event, but she was a past US amateur champion, has an incredible short game. And I remember when Eric was on tour with us as a little kid and running around, and he was very outgoing then and confident. So I can see he'd be the type that could, like, he made a great putt on the last to shoot 64 at the Canadian Open, and to be the leader in the clubhouse. And that would have been an easy one to miss, and he just drilled it. So I'm impressed with him.
Yeah, definitely a player to keep an eye on for some of the other events. And Sub, by the way, 300 to 1. Cole is 180 to 1. What about you, Jared? Besides obviously Woodland, who else do you think could have a good week?
Yep, I got my 5 names for you, so I'll just run through the 5. You can talk about any ones we want to talk about. But Keegan Bradley, 100 to 1. Minwoo Lee, 100 to 1. Cam Davis, another Aussie, 150 to 1. Kurt Kitayama, 180 to 1. And then Abraham Answer down at 300 to 1 right now.
Wow.
Yeah, what's happened to Answer's game? He's disappeared on Live Tour. He's taking all that money.
Yeah.
Keegan Bradley is a good one.
Yeah, I like Keegan. He's another guy that's good on tough golf courses. And I usually like to bet Keegan Bradley on the East Coast because that's usually where we see these bent grass greens. But I mean, we're on the West, but they're bent grass greens, and that's where he putts his best. So. Yeah,
I agree, because he grew up with that in New Hampshire and in Massachusetts. So he's used to the fast bent grass greens, and he's a wonderful, unbelievable long putter. He makes so many 30-footers. It's like his aunt. So I think that's a good bet.
By the way, Nick Taylor's 200 to 1 this week. Austin Eckroat is 350 to 1. He's been playing some good golf.
He has.
Emiliano Grillo is 180 to 1. Our boy Shank is 250 to 1.
Wow.
And I think Patrick Rogers may have a good week. He's 250 to 1. So
what's Taylor Moore?
Taylor Moore is 200 to 1.
Okay.
So he's having a good year. So by the way, Clark is 65 to 1.
Wyndham Clark, wow.
Yes. Boy, they love Wyndham Clark.
He's got a good game too. He hits the ball a mile.
Well, that'll serve him well.
The other guy, another live guy, I think is sort of interesting, is Mito Pereira, who has been playing well in live, and then I think he's played well in both majors so far this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He has.
Yeah. Well, he came 43rd at the Masters with 18th at the PGA, and the ball striking numbers were awesome at the PGA.
He hasn't made a cut in the U.S. Open yet. I think he's 0 for 3. Not very good on the bent grass, but another player. He still hasn't won yet. That's something else. Some of these guys, Tagala, Mito Pereira, they haven't even won yet.
Well, the trouble is that Mito's over on the Live Tour, so it makes it hard.
It does, to figure out what you got. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. And not sure, we didn't even talk about whether or not we were going to do a show on Friday night. Is that even possible?
We'll talk.
We'll talk. So we'll let you know.
It's good to see you both.
Yes, Jan, thanks a lot. And like I said, I'd like to schedule that Live PGA Tour conversation with Len. Maybe we could do that next week.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jared.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, Jared.
Thanks. Good luck.